Hey, Michelle, I have a question for you today.
Okay, let's go for it.
Well, how long do you think it takes us to record a single episode?
Ooh, well, I would say between the recording, the setup, and everything, I would say about 25 minutes. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and
Yeah.
also choosing a title at the
Oh,
end,
yeah,
saving the
true.
files. Yeah, about 25 minutes, I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, guys, you're going to see why we're talking about this in just a second, but we have a great listener question that we're going to answer today. But before we do that, guys, we want you to hit follow wherever you are listening to the All Ears English podcast. Why, Lindsay?
Oh my gosh, hit the follow button because that way you don't have to remember to go and find us. We will come to you. Easy
We're
service,
going to
right?
find you.
We'll find you because when you hit follow, our 4 episodes will automatically drop right into your catalog. So, for me as a podcast listener, I only listen to the shows that I follow. I don't go searching for other shows. It just
I
becomes,
forget.
yeah, you forget that a show exists. You
Yeah.
guys, you can't forget about All Ears English. Oh my gosh.
No.
No, no one forgets about All Ears English. So
No.
hit that follow button, whether you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, Castbox, wherever else you listen, hit the follow button now. And don't forget, we're also on YouTube. Right, Michelle? You can
That's
see
right.
our faces here today. If you want to, go to YouTube.
If you want to. All right. Okay. So, Lindsay, we have a question today from Asley from Japan. Thank you, Asley. Lindsay, would you like a question for us?
Of course. Here we go. Asley says, I hope you're doing well. I have a question about the phrases I would say, I would have to say, and I have to say. Is there any difference between these phrases? I'm assuming you guys use them before saying your opinions, but is there any other expressions that are useful for conveying your thoughts? I appreciate it if I can hear your ideas and suggestions on how to use them correctly. Thank you so much for making this amazing podcast. I'm looking forward to more great episodes.
Aw, thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thanks,
this is
Leslie.
a fun one of those fun nuanced episodes that made me think. But we're gonna get into it today, so this is gonna be good. We're going to mostly focus on the differences between these three
Yes.
today and how to use them. So, but if you want to hear other ways to express your opinions, you can also head over to episode 955, How to Express Your Opinion When It's Lukewarm in
Ooh. What
English.
does lukewarm mean, just for a bonus before we move on for today? What is lukewarm?
Lukewarm basically means it's just okay.
It's just okay. Yeah, lukewarm temperature of water is not hot, not cold, slightly warm, but just at like room temperature, kind of,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Is what it
Yep.
is. So when you don't feel fiery about your opinion, you just, something's okay. So go and check that out, guys. 955. Go all the way
Yes.
back into the catalog.
Back in
Good.
time.
Yes. Okay, Michelle, how do we answer this for Asley?
Okay, so Asley, there can be many contexts with these expressions, but we're going to focus on some main differences today. So, in my opinion, each of these can be used and are most frequently used when someone asks a question and you're pretty sure of the answer or you're expressing your opinion. So,
Okay.
like, for example, in our role play in the beginning, Lindsay asked, How long do you think it takes us to record an episode? And I said, Oh, I would say between this, and this. Like, how did that feel to you when I say I would say?
Yeah, you have authority over what you're saying, like you know what you're talking about, and you're kind of making like a bit of an educated guess a little bit.
Yeah.
Like there's not an exact answer. It could be 26
Right.
minutes, it could be 30, it could be 15. It's in that range, right?
Right. Exactly. And maybe you're like calculating in your head. Oh, I would say
Yeah,
It's kind of like you're making a little
right.
calculation.
That's a good
Yeah.
point. It's something, by the way, Michelle, that we talk about on IELTS Energy, the other podcast, a way to give yourself time to guess at something, calculate something, is by using would. You fill in would. And we do that as native speakers. I would say, I'm thinking, right? And using would
Right.
makes sense there. You need to fill that space.
Exactly. Yes. So it's a good way to save yourself some time when you're thinking as well.
Yeah.
So let's do some other examples. Here we
Okay.
go.
How many shirts do we need to order?
I would say six.
Great. Yeah, so that's another great example of that. It's like you feel like you need to fill in the gap with some words, so you use would
Yeah.
as you're
Yeah.
thinking.
Right. I mean, you could have just said how many shirts we need to order, and I could say 6, and that would just sound more like I've already thought it down. Maybe I'm looking at a sheet of paper and I know exactly,
Exactly.
the answer for sure. It's
Yes.
just easy to know the answer. And here we're kind of making some decisions.
Exactly. Yeah, that's an important difference though for native to
Yeah.
sound more native and natural for our listeners.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Or let's try this one. Where's the party?
I'm not sure, but I would have to say probably down that hall.
Okay, I'll check there.
Nice. Another example, I would have to say is the other piece that we're talking about today, right? Are we going to
Yep,
talk
I
about
would
what
have
is
to
the
say.
difference?
Yes, we're
Yeah,
going to
okay,
talk
we'll
about
get
that.
into
We're going to
it.
talk about
These
that
are
in a little.
examples first. Yeah, love it.
Yes. Okay, let's do another one.
Okay, why are there 10 people when we capped it at 8?
Ooh, I have to say it's probably because of a computer error.
Okay, so it
So,
feels like I'm getting a similar vibe from all of these in terms of
yeah.
thinking, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. I mean, do these feel different to you in any way? Does anything stand out, or does one maybe feel more natural to you that you're more likely to say?
Have to say, I would say, and I have to say. For me, I would say it feels more natural and frequent for me. Maybe it's different for you. I don't know. What? Is
Yeah, I would
that the wrong
say
answer?
also feels very no. It also feels kind of more natural. But I mean, I would say, or I would have to say, I think are used more for like, they could also be used for hypothetical situations, right? Because of would instead of have to say, right? So if he asked me out, I would say no. Or what
Right. Or
else?
if someone disrespected my friend, I would have to say something, but that's totally different, right, Michelle?
Those
That
are totally
feels very
different.
different. Yeah.
So those are just two different contexts where you can use those two, but you wouldn't say like if he asks me out, I have to say no. Like I mean,
No.
you would want to use would.
Yes. Okay, Michelle, what about I have to say as we used it earlier? Tell me about that one.
Yes, so this one is also used as an intro. So used to to me, it sounds like it's used to express an opinion confidently. So this is the most different. Like I think I have to say, and no. I would have to say, and I would say are more similar to each other.
Okay.
Maybe just a slightly different sound. And this one I think is a little bit different. So I
Yeah.
think this one is a little bit more confident, maybe
Okay.
even pushy. So let's see how this sounds.
Right. And kind of a different context too, isn't it? So let's just pay attention for our listeners, guys, pay attention to these contexts that we show you in these two tiny role plays. So what do you think of the place?
I have to say, this is much better than I expected.
All right. So this is quite different the way we're
Right.
setting it up here, Michelle,
Yes.
right? You are declaring something. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a more confident feel than I think I would say. I mean, because like just going back to the t-shirt example, it wouldn't make sense if you said how many shirts do we need to order, and I just said I have to say 6. Like it just doesn't really work. It's a little bit different from those
Yeah,
other
because
two.
I would have to say 6 is more you're guessing. You're making an estimate. You're making an educated guess as to how many shirts you want to order, but that doesn't make sense in this context, right? With have to
Right.
say. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. So let's give another example.
Okay, let's give another example. Okay, so I have to say, I think you really should call your brother.
Okay, fine. Okay.
Okay.
So it's kind of like you're declaring something, you're stating something that's maybe the other person doesn't want to hear, kind of, or what? What's happening?
Well, I think it's just I think it's a little bit pushy how I said it, right? Like I think I have to say is just more so declaring your opinion about something like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I have to say this is like you planned a really great party." It's like just more like, "Oh, I want to introduce this opinion." Whereas I would have to say I mean or like I would say it's more like I'm thinking
Thinking.
I have to say is a more confident start.
Yeah. And I think when you say, I have to say before you express an opinion, you might be implying that you know that
Right.
people will disagree with you. That maybe,
Ah.
yeah. Do you think so?
Yeah, could be.
Yeah.
You maybe that like what you're bringing up is like a little bit touchy.
Controversial or touchy,
Right.
or people, it won't be a popular opinion. Okay.
Right. So
Yes.
yeah, the other ones are just a little bit more, oh, you're thinking, oh, I would have to say, oh, I would
Yeah.
say, right?
Totally.
Like,
Totally. Hmm.
and then the other one is just pretty different.
Yeah. So let's give another role play for our listeners here. So here we are friends talking about an upcoming party. So now listen closely, guys, so that you can hear all of the different ways of using these together in one conversation, and get the app if you want to see the transcripts for this. So here we go. So are you going?
Of course. I have to say, I'm kind of surprised they didn't invite Sarah.
Well, me too. Do you think they just didn't have enough room?
I would say maybe they did, but they just felt she may not know anyone.
Yeah, weird.
Well, what time does it start?
I have to find the invitation, but I would have to say 7.
Okay, let me know.
Yeah, so this is it's really, this episode in particular, it's really good for our listeners to see these 3 expressions lined up against each other, because really look at the context here, guys. Context is king. It's king here in this episode today.
That's right. It's all about the context. There's
Yes.
there's really a lot to kind of dig into, and a lot you can infer based on when somebody's saying one of these expressions.
Yeah, so for the first one, we used I have to say. And you said, of course, I have to say. I'm kind of surprised they didn't invite Sarah. Now, you're about to give an opinion. Your opinion might be controversial or against what most people believe, against what the hosts believe. So that's a perfect example.
I'm saying something that I feel kind of confidently. And it, so it's more, I don't know. This one is kind of like somebody might get a certain feeling from you if you use this expression.
Like that you are overstepping.
Could be.
Yeah.
What does that mean to overstep? Let's make that a bonus word.
Bonus for today. Overstepping, you're just kind of saying a little, maybe you're saying what people are thinking, but you're the one that says it. And it might not be a popular opinion. It might be a little controversial, against the grain. Right?
Right. Yes.
Yes.
So I'm surprised they didn't invite Sarah. Like I'm saying this to you because I think you might agree with me, and I like, it's almost like I wouldn't want the others to hear that I'm talking about this. Like, I wouldn't want to bring this up to the host. So I'm like, I'm feeling you out. Like, can we talk some trash on these?
This phrase is quite interesting. There's a lot in it. There's a lot loaded in there in terms of meaning, in what you infer from what they're saying. More interesting than I would say. I would say it's just about guessing, taking a guess, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, do you think they just didn't have enough room, right, to invite Sarah? I would say maybe they did, but they just felt she may not know anyone, right? Okay.
Yeah. So here you're not really being any fun. Oh no, it's me. Like
You're
I'm
not
not,
being fun.
like I'm not like joining in on you. I'm not like, yeah, that was ridiculous. I'm kind of like, oh yeah, I would say maybe I'm filling the space, trying to think of why maybe that she didn't get invited, right?
When we probably both know maybe the host just purposefully maybe excluded her, right? We're coming up with other reasons why it might be true that she didn't get invited. We're trying to kind of fill in the gaps here a little bit. But just if we take, I would say, in isolation, you're really just coming up with an excuse. You're coming up with a guess or an excuse or an idea. Right?
Yeah. And then you said, I have to find the invitation. I'm asking you some information. So you said I would have to say 7. So like you're taking some time and you're like, I think it's this. It's just another way of saying like, I think.
Yeah, I don't really remember what it said on my invitation. I would have to say 7. So it's kind of a guess, but you're kind of want to double check. You're going to want to double check that invite time so you don't show up early. That's not good.
Right. And here you're illustrating that like you think you're sure, but like don't, like, you shouldn't base everything off of this answer because I'm not quite sure. It shows that you're not quite sure.
Yeah. By the way, a cultural tip, Michelle, when you're invited to, let's say, like a summer barbecue, when do you show up? Like, what's your MO when it comes to show up time typically?
So it really depends. I would say probably like 15 minutes into it, maybe
Okay.
half hour. You know, because like a lot of times barbecues are more like a open,
Yeah, open.
kind of like an open house. Like it's a barbecue is different from like, oh, we're here in a like a sit down meal. A
Right.
barbecue is usually everybody's just kind of coming in and out, and yeah. So what about you?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's always good if you're hosting the barbecue to let listeners know when you're serving food, right? So we hosted a barbecue on Memorial Day, and we said, something like come over at 3, food at 4. So that meant
Yeah.
people could really come anytime between 3 and 4, right? If they wanted to eat and be part of the barbecue, like properly part of the barbecue.
Right. That's a
So
good.
look for that tip like on your invite, like when are you eating? And then, obviously for like a sit down meal, it's more important that you come. Make sure you're there when the meal's being served because that can be very
Right. That's
stressful for the
different.
host. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think showing up half an hour late is perfect. That's my
Yeah.
my mode. Yeah, for that kind of. Anyways, pro tip.
Pro tip. All right, Lindsay,
So-
what's the takeaway for today?
All right. So, these are similar, but as we looked at them more, we saw that I have to say is quite different from I would say or I would have to say. I would say and I would have to say are more about taking a guess, throwing out what you think, and I have to say is about getting ready to state kind of a controversial or unstated opinion.
Yeah.
That's really
Yeah.
important, those differences. That's what I want our listeners to remember today.
I think
Yeah.
that's the biggest takeaway for today. Well said, Lindsay.
Good stuff. All right, Michelle, guys, hit follow on the podcast. And Michelle, I'll see you very soon. You take care.
Bye. Bye, guys.
Bye.